Hello, book connectors. Welcome back to the Book Connection. I am your host, Blue Eyed Black Devil, and I am here with another book review. This time, I am reviewing the book The Argument by Victoria Jenkins. I'd never heard of her. I'm beginning to wonder if I read as much as I think I do, because most of these books I have posted, I know within this last year or so, are books I've never read, nor have I heard of the authors before. So this one is no different. So come on in. Let's go. I have started and stopped and stopped and started and started and stopped this book, I know, at least a dozen times within the last 4 months. Not 4 days, weeks, but months, people. It just was not getting and holding my attention. Nothing seems to be as of late. But the other night, I decided to put it on again. And let's have a look-see. See if I can get just a little further than I had been getting. And when I did, whenever the interest took present, it just took over. I found I almost couldn't put it down. So I finished it last night. I said that about stopping and starting 1,000 times because sometimes that's what it takes to find the jewel in the Nile, I guess. So here we go. This is a story about a family that from the outside appears to be normal. There isn't anything in particular that stands out about them. But inside the house, there is a stay-at-home mother. She and her husband together have 2 daughters, Olivia, age 15, and daughter Rosie, who is 10. Now, when Olivia was small, she was everything that her sister Rosie is now. Lovable, thoughtful, caring, kind, would do whatever she could for you, and all that goes there. Boy, that sounds familiar to me. But as she grew into adolescence, she took a turn. And she is constantly at odds with her parents, more so her mother than her father. Her father is out of town away a lot on business, I should say. Although the mother, his wife, knows how. Okay, I guess I should have stated. The children are Olivia and Rosie, but the parents' names are Michael and Laura. So Laura obviously knows how to get in touch with her husband if she needs him throughout the workday. Now, for whatever reason, she doesn't drive. So Olivia has turned into this brooding teenager. She just is always at odds for one reason or another, mainly with the mom. So one Friday, she asked to go to a party, and her mother told her no. Olivia just storms off, and then next thing we know, she's not home. Now, she has a curfew. I think the curfew was like 10:30 at night, but it was around 10:47 when Laura sees the lights outside come on, when someone is approaching the house. And it's Olivia. Didn't it go on to describe that Olivia is pale as a ghost? And she had her hair up in like a messy bun, hairdo on top of her head, bow high on her head. But she comes in, she walks past her mother, and then her mother questions her about, I told you not to go to the party, and the girl was reeking of alcohol. And so she was telling her, now, I'm going to have to tell your father. And she was like, you can do what you got to do. And basically, she goes off upstairs and goes to bed. But she decided then and there, Olivia that is, that she was not going to speak to her mother. And this would go on indefinitely. And so it did. Now, you know, when books are written, I don't care how big a book is, it seems to be from beginning to end, all taking place within a week. Sometimes they may drag it out for like a month, but this book, it was a week. So she didn't speak to either parent, because when the father comes home, the mom doesn't tell him that the girl slipped out and went to a party. She just said that Olivia was just being her normal, rude. Well, she didn't call her rude. She just said she's just to herself. She won't speak to her. And she didn't really understand why. Because something had gone on before the dad left, and it was like, this is the last straw. If I get another report, that's not going to bode too well for you, Olivia. So the mom thought she was sparing her daughter by not telling Michael about the girl going to the party and whatnot. So eventually she does admit that she and Olivia had a few words, because he was wanting to know why she wasn't speaking to them. And so he comes up to Olivia's room and sits on the foot of her bed, and he just tries to talk to her, and she just wouldn't look at him, turned her back, all this stuff. And he sat there for a while, just, I guess, at a loss for words. But then he does say, we really do love you, Olivia. You may not feel like it now, but your mother and I, we really do love you, and all we ever had was your and Rosie's best interests at heart. Basically, you may not understand it now, but one day you will. He couldn't get her to say anything, and he just gave up and went on out of the room. All right, she goes to school, and one of the boys in the class, because, at this party, we never, ever, ever really were told what happened at the party. But because she felt like she was having a hard time at school, the kids were just going back and forth during the changes of class, and they would talk about or whistle at, especially the guys in room. And so the teacher asked them about some assignment she had offered. And one of the guys who was at the party, who they allude to some sex act that Olivia was engaged in with this guy. And he was like, I would say Olivia, but... And then everybody just started laughing. Well, the teacher didn't seem to find whatever they were laughing at funny. In fact, she had him to go step out in the hall. So she gave the class the assignment. She had them doing something. She steps outside in the hall and talks to the student. He comes on back in, the teacher comes back on in, and at the end of class, as everyone was leaving, she called Olivia to the side. She's like, is everything okay? And Olivia's like, it's fine. She said, well, if I can help you. It's fine, I said. And she just kind of walks off. Well, not only is Olivia not speaking to her parents, but she's refusing to eat. Meanwhile, the mom is still getting up every day preparing lunches for the girls to take to school. She doesn't eat in school. And she just goes on, every now and then they may make a mention of, like one morning she had just gotten too hungry, and she did go downstairs and fix herself a bowl of cereal and took them back upstairs. So that was how it was. Well, the day after that happened in the classroom, Olivia comes in, And when they get ready to go to lunch, Olivia approaches that same teacher, Miss Johnson, and she apologizes to the way she acted the day before. And she was like, sure, that's fine, I understand. And then she asked, could she stay in the classroom during the lunch period? She wasn't very hungry. She had a snack. She might eat that, but she just felt like she needed to be by herself. And the lady said, okay. Well, when Miss Johnson leaves, Olivia pulls out a sheet of numbers and she calls around until she finds Ellen. I can't remember her grandmother's last name, but Ellen was her mother's mother. And Laura used to go to the nursing home facility to see her mom every day. So she called around until she found out where she was. And then she left school that day and went to see her. The next day, another teacher questioned her about her absence because they saw her. She came to school on time, and she was where she was supposed to be up until the class after lunch. One of the descriptions in this book, when describing the book, they said this was a psychological thriller. It's a gripping psychological thriller, and it was that. So you're thinking everything is Olivia just acting out, and you know she's the main character. She's the one acting out, so how will she meet her demise? Just as I started questioning that, then Michael comes home one day from work, and they are trying to decide whether or not to call the police because the night before he left to go to work, someone tried to break in the house. And so, but when Michael got up to go downstairs to see what it was, they just saw where the door had been broken in. I think part of the wall was smashed in, paint chipped, but nothing was taken. But when Michael was getting ready to come back upstairs and Laura had come out of the bedroom, they both see Olivia going back up the steps. So they figured they knew she didn't do it, but they felt like she knew who did do it. And so they were like, Olivia, this is enough, stop it, talk to us, tell us where you need to be, and this, that, and the other. So she never would say anything. So they spent the rest of that night getting that wall pasted back together as best they could and painting it. And then Laura's main concern after all of that happened was Rosie. She didn't want Rosie to know anything about that. So that's what she went up there and told Olivia. So this goes on. Well, school was still not easy for Olivia. Miss Johnson gave them an assignment. They were supposed to write about something in their lives that they found hard to deal with, and wanted them to write down, how they felt and if it had ever played itself out, and if it had, how, in what way, and this, that, and the other. It took Olivia about 5 minutes to get started, but when she did, it was like, because I think it only had to be a couple of pages, but the way it was described, it was as if she was writing a dissertation. She just could not get it out enough. It's like the end of class, as everyone was turning theirs in, she waits to the last one, and she asked Miss Johnson if she could read it right then. Miss Johnson was like, no, I have a meeting to get to, but I most definitely will read it by the time, you come back. Evidently, she just went to this class a couple of days out of the week. And she was in the last day of that particular week. So she couldn't do anything about it. She was disappointed because she had poured her heart and feelings out in that paper. Well, before she could get back to Miss Johnson's for that next class, she goes on top of the school building and disrobes from the waist up. She's got the whole school looking at her. And she's flashing her big old, well, I don't know if they were big or not, but she was flashing her chest. A lot of the staff and some students were just like, they just couldn't believe what they were looking at. They couldn't say anything, but they eventually talked her down from the top of the building. And a lot of her tormentors, they just laughed, the boys and the girls. They just laughed and laughed and laughed. Well, Laura had to go get her. And when Michael came home, she was telling him, he storms upstairs, says something to Olivia. He comes back downstairs, but he never did tell Laura what was said, what he said or what Olivia said. Later on, Laura goes up to go to bed and she hears Olivia quietly crying. And she wanted to go in there, but she felt like Olivia still wouldn't tell her. But Olivia she was hurt because her dad was, saying that, basically, in a nutshell, she was just a lost cause. She's just an embarrassment. She just refuses to do any better. Doesn't matter that he's given them, not just her, but their mother and them, a beautiful home. And that was one of the things Laura was saying. She's like, I have this beautiful home. I do not have to work. And her favorite room in the house was the kitchen, which is what was messed up when whoever tried to break in the house was. So she couldn't do anything about it. She goes on to bed. She was on, obviously, she was on suspension from the school. All right, as time goes by, though, one night, she needed Michael for something, and wait a minute. How did I do all of that and forget to tell you? Okay, Olivia, they think, is responsible for all kinds of unexplained things. One of them is the keys coming up missing to the house. They kept them on a certain hook, on a certain wall of a certain room. And Laura used to get up, even though Olivia was 15, she would walk them to the school every morning. Well, this particular morning, the keys were not there. She called and asked Michael about it. Michael doesn't understand what she means. What do you mean the keys are not there? Well, no, I really wouldn't be able to tell you where to start looking for them. This goes on and on. And so it bothered Laura all that day, but she knew not to ask Olivia anything. Rosie didn't know anything about it either. So she's like, One time he was gone and she needed him. It had to be pretty bad, although I can't remember what it was. But she called Michael. Couldn't get him on his cell phone, so she called the hotel he was supposedly staying in. They had no listing for him, period. And she hung up and she called his cell phone. She still couldn't get him. She finally gets mad and goes to sleep. She wakes up and he's laying next to her. And so he was like, I wasn't at the hotel because I decided to come home. She said, but they said they don't even have a record of you even staying there. He was like, oh, my company probably didn't have time to add me to the roster. Yada, yada, yada. So he just played that out. He gets up and goes to work, and she gets ready to go. Well, I can't remember when this happened, but somewhere between the keys coming up missing, someone breaking in the house, Laura gets a phone call one day saying it was Rosie's school saying that she had to get there, that Rosie had been in an accident. So that's why she had called Michael to tell him about Rosie supposedly in the accident and she couldn't get him. She gets to the school, they're looking at her like they're crazy. She's crazy because nobody sent that call out. In fact, the one woman, well, it was normally two people that worked the switchboard, but this one particular day, one of the women, the one that worked the main switchboard, was not there. And the lady who was there said she fielded every call that came in and she knows she had not called anybody. So at this point, Laura is not believing them. She's just running through the hall and she makes it to like the gymnasium and she sees Rosie running and laughing and playing with her other classmates. And she turns around and she's just startled. Mom, school's not out yet. And she's like, I know, baby, are you okay? And Rosie's like, why wouldn't I be? You know, she's like, I don't know what's going on with Mom. All right, that's weird. Okay. So Rosie goes on with her day and Laura goes back home and she is totally puzzled. She knows that she received that phone call. Well, then 2 or 3 days later, supposedly this is in the same week as the book was when it started, she gets ready to go pick the girls up from school. And just as she gets ready to open the door, this lady knocks on the door. And she's saying, I need to talk to you about your husband. She said, what about my husband? And they said, I really don't want to discuss this out loud. Can I come in? And Laura was like, nope. And Olivia is still on suspension at this time. So she was upstairs looking at the whole thing. And the woman just kept trying to force her way in the house. And Laura did manage to get the door shut. I think it hurt the lady's foot, but she did. She was like, you're really going to regret not listening to what I have to say. So she was angry with the lady, and she was also beginning to be angry with Michael because she just kept playing over and over how he didn't answer her call. The hotel said he hadn't been there, but he ends up in the bed with her, you know, over the middle of the night. All of this is going through her head as she's going to pick Rosie up from school. Now, the father comes home. And it was at night. He was in there undressing in the bedroom. Laura sits up. And he just didn't say a word. He just hauled off and slapped her. Just slapped her. She fell back. He was like, you only have one job to do, and that is to make sure that these girls go to school and do as they're told here at the house. And you can't even do that. Why didn't you tell me that Olivia went to a party? And she tried to say, you know, I just knew, you know, she just couldn't come up with an answer. But I believe worse than that to him was the fact that he apparently didn't know that she was going to the nursing home to see her mother every day. They didn't like each other. Michael and his mother-in-law did not like each other. And Laura's mother never even knew Olivia existed. So when He's like, why have you been over there to see that woman? That woman is how he kept referring to that lady mama. So, that went on for a while. But it was awful long. She was like, well, she doesn't have long. She's dying now. And he's like, you still basically, he would say, you still don't have no business over there, period. So, that went on. All right. At some point, when Olivia was still on restriction, Rosie comes into the room. And although Rosie's 5 years younger in a lot of ways, she's way more mature than Olivia is. And she's like, Mom said you got in trouble for flashing your boobies at school. And they kind of laughed about it and stuff. And Olivia's like, hush, because if they know you're in here, you're going to be in trouble. And I don't want you getting in trouble. This goes on and on. Well, one of the days when Laura was still puzzled as to why Olivia wouldn't speak to her because she knew he had something to do beyond going to that party, Laura goes up in Olivia's room and does just like a search to see what she could find. She found a photo album of just Olivia and Rosie as they were growing up through the years. But then she got down on the floor. She looks up under Olivia's bed and she finds within the box spring a diary. The diary, I guess the lock was broke. I don't know. But Laura found them and she took them to her room. She was hoping Olivia would come and ask for them. But she never did. But one of the days when Rose, the mom, was out of the house, Olivia went and did the same thing to her parents' room. Now, their parents' room had always been off limits. They were never allowed to go in there. Her mother said it was because it was the one room of the house where there were no, children with stuff strewn all over the floor and bed. They just weren't allowed in there. But she goes and she finds that same diary up under her mother's bed. Well, actually, she didn't find it. She asked Rosie to go see what she could find. She didn't tell her what to look for specifically. She just told her to see what she could find and bring it to her. So she said, please don't get caught. Well, while Rosie was doing this, she was like, well, what am I going to say if Mom comes and catches me? She said, well, just tell her you needed some help with homework. And you didn't know where she was. You were just checking. And that's exactly what she did. But for whatever reason, see, Lauren trusts Rosie. She knew Rosie, would ever do anything wrong. Olivia was who she was concerned with. So she took it as whatever Rosie said. She took it at face value. She goes, oh, boy. But that night, the dad slapped Lauren. Everything starts to come out. Laura goes into Olivia's room where she finally realizes that her diary is no longer there. She's just calling Olivia all kind of stupid girls, and you're just a wicked girl, and you just, she didn't call her a witch, but she's like, what do you practice? What kind of voodoo stuff are you practicing? And this, that, and the other. Olivia, you just don't understand the box of Pandora. You just open. How could you? Because she finds out that Olivia had gone to the nursing home to meet her mother. She did tell Olivia that her mother suffered from mental illness. Most of her childhood. Now you have to couple that with senility. And so, and she never knew that Olivia existed. Why didn't she know about Olivia? Because Laura had done the same thing that Olivia did when she was 17. Her mother forbade her to go to a school party. She went, and she got essayed, and Olivia was the result. She didn't want to tell Olivia that because Michael had always stepped in. The only person other than the assailant and Laura that knew that it happened was Michael. He treated Olivia the same way he treated Rosie. He was just kind, rather passionate, loving. It was nothing he would not do for Olivia and Laura. Why do I keep saying Lauren? I know that lady's name was Laura. But anyway, Olivia had more. Why didn't you feel like you could tell me? Why? She said, so you're saying that he is not my dad? She was built more like Michael, stocky, kind of fat. And she was like, so you chose to deal with it by keeping me overweight, knowing that the other kids would not like me because I am, I'm less attractive. I'm not outgoing. Nobody ever chooses me. I don't have friends. You don't have friends. All we have is this house. And so she just kind of goes off. And she said, I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm not in a sense because I don't see why you would take it out of me unless it's just that looking at me reminds you so much of him. But that's not my fault. And the mom didn't try to apologize or explain anymore. She just got up and left. Well, Michael came in. But before he got there, Rosie comes in to her room, and Olivia was like, get out. She said, look, we have got to find a way out of here. We just do. Because if we stay in here, someone's going to end up dead. We just got to go. I don't know what it is. So Rosie goes to bed. The dad comes home and chains Olivia to the bedpost, arms and legs. And I'm like, nah, what happened? Did I miss something? I'm not understanding all of this. So Rosie comes in and Olivia's like, get out of here. She didn't want Rosie to get caught there because she knew if she had, she would have been chained to her bed to come to find out this was common practice in that household. If the dad was dissatisfied with the girls and he felt like Laura wasn't doing what she should have been doing as a mom, the punishment would be, and it never seemed to be the mom. It was always, mainly Olivia, sometimes Rosie, but Olivia all the time. So he goes in the room and he starts arguing with Laura again. Storms out of the room. He goes down the hall to Rosie's room. He doesn't see Rosie. He comes back to her. Where in the hell is Rosie? Rosie was out trying to see, because the Lord said, look, we got to go. She said, because if we don't make it out of here together, they're going to send me off, because Laura had already told her that plans had been made for her to be removed from the home indefinitely. And Olivia says, I know you're younger than me, but you have so much wisdom. She said, excuse me, I need you to understand that we both have to leave. So I need you to go scout out a place where we can go. Because otherwise, I may not be here when you come home tomorrow or one day. All I know is they're sending me away and I don't have a choice in the matter. So when the dad goes in and notices Rosie missing, he goes back, but Lori can tell him anything because she didn't know where she was. So he was so ticked off. He grabs Laura, then he goes and unchains Olivia, makes them go downstairs and get in the car. He takes them to a place, and it's in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, but the place was familiar to Laura, Olivia, and Rosie. He starts to beat them. He takes them there so they won't be heard or seen. And he beats them until he gets tired. Well, now he decides beating them is just not enough. He tries to delete them. This goes on and on. He hits him. That lady's name was not Laura. I apologize so much. I've been calling her Laura and Laura. Her name was Hannah. Hannah, Hannah. Hannah. Where in the world I come up with the other names, I just don't know. I really, it's just like a light bulb. That's what I've made. Okay, so he is out here doing all of this. He finally hits Hannah over the head with a shovel. I don't know where Rosie comes from, but she is out there with them now. And he's starting to try to off Olivia. But Rosie was fighting. Olivia was fighting with him too, but Rosie was getting the better of him. And so at some point, one of those times he hits Hannah, and she falls. She loses consciousness. So the girls get mad and they try to double team him to get him off of them and to leave the mom alone. Eventually, though, Hannah wakes up in a hospital where she learns that her father is no longer alive and she is the reason why she ends up in prison, and neither of the girls, especially Olivia, would really go and have anything to do with it. When they did come, it was to get questions answered. You know, like, well, Mom, I'm sorry that you were victimized at 17, and I am the product of what happened to you. But why didn't you feel that you could tell me? All this time I have walked around, felt like you hated me. And I couldn't understand why. Why? So it's true what they say when people end up, women or a parent end up not liking this one child because of something the other parent did within that relationship. Is that right? How about the twist of the story is this? Michael was the one that essayed Hannah at age 17. It was at that party she went to. Now, how he ended up alone with her, we don't know. How it is that she didn't recognize that he was the one that had done that, I don't know. But after Olivia found out that it happened to her mom, she started questioning and looking at everybody, especially their father, because both Hannah and Rosie seem to be tall, but And Michael was tall as a man, but he was also stout or stocky. Olivia was short and chunky. And she took her physical build after him. Now, we used to say, I do all I can for you and our girls. Hannah thought he was saying that. I like to say it, Laura again. Hannah thought he was saying that because he was the only father that Olivia had ever known. But he was saying it because he knew all along that he was the one that had done that to Hannah. He also knew that this is why her mother did not like him. He didn't like her because she would not let go. She just kept saying, I'm going to, we'll get to the bottom of it. And what happened was it ended up driving a permanent wedge between Hannah and her mother. And it deprived both of the girls of ever getting to know their grandmother. Even though the grandmother had mental illness even before senility set in, the children had no memories of doing or being around the grandmother. And if anybody had, it would have been Rosie. Because Michael married Hannah. When she was 17, he was 20. So it's like after he married her, she cut off any communication, not only with her mother, but any friends she had along the way. Olivia didn't have anyone to go to who knew her mother from the past. The life was always parents and the two girls, and that's what they wanted the world to see from the outside. So now Hannah's in prison for offing her assailant, and the girls are just left permanently with scars and questions they will probably never have answered fully, or where they would believe all Hannah kept saying. Well, finally, when it all comes out in wash, and Olivia says, oh my God, Mom, Dad is your rapist? You told me what happened and how old you were. When all you had to do, when I got ready to go to that party, all you had to say besides you can't go, look, parties aren't always what they appear to be in school. And just tell, all you had to do is tell me what happened to you. But now, as a mother, you can say that, but if a child is determined, they'll still try to excuse it. Well, that was you, or whatever. That didn't happen to me, fortunately, but, kids, when they are that age, they are right. You can do nothing right, and that's just how it is. So, when she found out that Michael was the one who had done that to her, and then that she went on and married that man, she was sick as a human dog, and I'm sure she was. But the book ends with the girls. They were still speaking to her, but it kind of left an open ending. You don't know if they're going to try to rebuild the relationship with their mother now that they know the truth. And we guess it's the whole truth. We just don't know. Or are they just going to be satisfied with what they know? We don't know. That book I was so glad that I finally completed reading the book. I did not like the ending. Well, I did and I didn't. I liked the ending because it was a bit realistic in that a lot of times when everything comes out in the wash, we still don't get answers to questions we have. Sometimes it may be we have too many questions, and sometimes, and not enough answers. But we may not believe that the answers we're getting are accurate. But then, that's the realistic side of life. Now, if it was a book, normally they always manage to tie everything up in a nice little neat bow. Like, yes, the mother was in prison, but she was released because they felt like it was self-defense, and she held her babies, and they went on and forged a new life for themselves. That's usually what happens in the books that I like to read. Anyway, that wraps this book up. It was brilliant. Victoria Jenkins, like I said, I'd never heard of her or this book before. But I have found some more books online by her that I am going to see about adding to my wish list because, like I said, it started off slow. Oh, it started off so slow. But I am so glad whatever it was that was within me to say, let me see if I could get just another chapter of where I was the last time I stopped reading the book. And when I did, I just almost couldn't put it down. It was just so good. But thank you all, subscribers. Thank you for being subscribed to the channel. Visitors, please feel free to join us. We'd love to have you over here. And everyone, whatever you do, please be sure to like, share, comment respectfully, and by all means, make sure you have your notification bells turned on and set to all so you'll know every time I upload a video. The last video I put out, I believe, was Thursday of last week. Maybe it was either Wednesday or Thursday, so the 18th or 19th of February. And I got one response. I believe the subject of the books I talked about, nobody was interested in. I can't blame that one on YouTube. Or can I? I don't know. I just know only one person responded. I think I had a few views, but nobody cared to leave a comment. Hopefully this subject matter in this book will draw more views from you all. And maybe YouTube is putting my videos through and nobody cares. Who knows? So what? So anyway, I'm going to be here. Let me see if there's anything else I want to say. Nope. I think this is it, book connectors. So, book connectors, remember this. As long as there are books around, there is always something to read. And until we read again, book connectors, be safe out there. Have a wonderful work week. And know that we are all blessed by God. Bye for now.